it's not just a singular product too. Like you have a whole line. It's, better sleep, great stuff, and energy. Like, how did that come about? You had this ESS 60, right? You had this purified almost or formula of the C60 that's available. And how did you start to then basically position it for other
Yeah.
health needs?
Well, I think you ask, I think what you're asking is a lot more challenging than you realize what you're asking, right? Because I think what you're asking is like, what did it look like to try and start marketing this stuff? Right. And I could tell a fun little story way back when we were manufacturing raw industrial C60, the internet didn't exist. Right. So I think if you were to just go to an entrepreneur today and it was like, hey, they just discovered this Nobel Prize winning thing and everybody wants it. Like, what do? You make a website, right?
Yep.
And maybe, I mean, it's science. So you probably don't even need to do social media. You probably need to do LinkedIn. Maybe you need to do like ResearchGate, where you can collaborate with other scientists. It's just a no-brainer. And then if you were to ask that same entrepreneur, okay, pretend the internet didn't exist at all. What do you do? And I don't think they'd have an answer, right? The thing we did is our first kind of real endeavor into marketing was we drove up to St. Louis from Houston because we're broke college kids, right? So we drove straight through the night, and we went to a symposium, Electrochemical Society symposium. And then we did things like, well, let's get the Electrochemical Society Symposium list and let's call every professor on that list and just like, are you doing research in fullerenes? Why not? What are you doing? And so I made those phone calls, right? Like it was just like the old school marketing, it's old school. It was all new at the time, right?
Yeah.
And then when you start, so that I think that's just an interesting, and that is in my book. When you start thinking about this molecule, the first thing is, hey, it extended their lives. Why? So people want to know why, and I can address that in a couple of ways. One is that the medical community often thinks about longevity as a oxidation and inflammation issue, right? And so we can say we check both of those boxes. We have to be very careful. There's an ad hoc study out on the web that shows our product to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. Another one, peer-reviewed published research, 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So antioxidant, absolutely check. The next is inflammation. You got to be really careful with inflammation. The FDA has equated inflammation with the diseases of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, if you're talking about mitigating or managing inflammation, you're talking about curing a disease. And so you can't do that, right? We need a lot more research to be able to do that. What we can say is we address inflammation as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation, right? So we've all had a tough workout or even just walked one day longer than normally, woke up, felt that inflammation in our bodies, and for sure, we can address that inflammation. The other types of inflammation, and I'm going to share this. My director of research once said that the original paper could be 5 separate research papers, right? So you got this longevity component. The next kind of fascinating component is that all of the Wistar rats died without tumors, right? So a typical Wistar rat lives 32 months and has a known amount of tumor mass. So the longer they live, the more tumor mass they have in their body. Even though the MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months, none of them had any tumors, right? That has, it certainly has, a lot of people are like, oh, cure for cancer. And I would say no. And I do say no. There's a big difference between managing a cancer that's metastasized, right? And being a cancer preventative, which is certainly what this kind of implies. And we know things as simple as good nutrition, good sleep, good exercise are cancer preventatives. But that's a pretty phenomenal result. There's probably a tie-in with inflammation that I can't make because of the FDA requirements.
Yeah.
And then I'll just wrap it up that our product fits perfectly in with an anti-inflammatory diet, right? So this is the diet of this blue zone people. The people who tend to live longer tend to have reduced incidences of stroke, reduced incidences of heart attack. And so that kind of answers that piece. Now, when you start to, you got to take your theories and then you got to couple them with what customers are sharing with you, right? And customers, our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And so you're like, wait, focus and energy, those sound like even different products. Just those could be different products. And then sleep, that can be a different product. And then you start lumping this all together. And our original packaging kind of says all of the things that our customers put together. But as soon as you're like, yeah, it's good for sleep and lifespan ostensibly and energy and eye health and joint health, and it's, it's an oil, and you're like, yeah, I know what kind of oil that is. It's called snake oil. Like that's where your mind goes right away. And so I kind of knew that I needed to separate these out in terms of packaging, but I also I just want to be as transparent as possible. And so I thought, well, we got to figure out a different formulation for each of these things. And then one day I just said, you got to get over yourself, right? The reality is that to have the right conversations with people, you've got to have the packaging that focuses in on what they're trying to address. So it turns out those exercise recovery, focus and energy, better sleep, party recovery are all exactly the same product. That's just what our customers, in fact, it's what our customers were telling us when it said not for human consumption on the labeling. So you want to talk about placebo effect. The opposite of placebo effect is not for human consumption, right? Like this will do nothing for you. And then that's what our customers were saying. And from a business perspective, the hesitation is, I just don't want somebody like Casper goes on and he buys one of each, and then he gets them home and he's like, oh my God, they're the same. I've been ripped off. Okay, that's going to be a small percentage. One of the things we're very mindful is we would never, cross sell or upsell another of the same thing. Like that's where I think you bump into challenges. And then our customer service has like 850 5-star reviews. It's going to be, hey, Casper, we understand it was never our intent. You want to send it back? You want to keep them? Like your refund? Like whatever it is, what do we need to do to make you happy about this miscommunication that we try very hard to avoid? So I think that's probably the answer. That like it's a challenge.
No, definitely. You're absolutely right, Chris. It's an incredible challenge when you talk about something that is going to be healthy in numerous different ways for numerous systems of the body and react slightly differently in everyone else. I've seen those supplements where for some it's like, oh, my digestion improved. And it was like, oh, but it was pitched as a brain supplement, right? And it's like, how could that be? Because things act that way. Everything works holistically in the body, and each of us takes that element that is therapeutic and can help in different ways.
Yeah.
But people are always defined by what is bothering them or symptoms, what they have, whether it's, I have brain fog. I have to look for something that says it is against brain fog, right?
Yeah.
Calm, focus, and concentration, because otherwise, you're right. It seems like snake oil will be like, well, this will help in any way. Whatever you want it, that's, but that's
right up, step right up.
That's really how so much of, health works, how much good diets work and good food works as well. So I completely get that.